So what we're going to cover tonight, I want to go through things fairly quickly because I want to get to the solar stuff that's at the end because that's what most of you are here to talk about, but we don't want to miss an opportunity to explain who Hoosier Energy is, what role and responsibility we play with our member systems, go through a lot of the projects that we've been spending a ton of time and energy on over the last 7 or 8 years, how we've put our toe in the water and our foot in the water, and then how we're submerging ourselves very quickly as far as diversification within the generation portfolio. So very few years ago, everything was a coal resource, and now we have assets throughout the Midwest with diversified technologies, sizes, locations, markets. It's really astounding what the change has been in a very short time period. And then we're going to talk specifically about the solar trends, because solar is the hottest topic within the utility market right now. And we're going to talk about why that is and how to react to it. So again, Hoosier Energy is the generation transmission cooperative. So we are the bulk supplier of electricity for each one of the 18 member systems. Collectively, it's about 300,000 end consumers through our member systems, and we supply that bulk power at the substation to the member systems, and then they in turn supply the end consumers, which totals about 325,000 end consumers in 48 of the 92 counties within Indiana and 11 counties in Illinois. So we've got a huge service territory as far as the generation transmission cooperative goes. It's very expansive for touching 300,000 end consumers. So now let's focus on what we've done on the renewable energy front, which we're really, really proud of what we've added to the portfolio, again, since 2007. And none of this is required. This is all through the foresight of the board of directors of Hoosier Energy, which each one of the member systems has a board of director that sits on Hoosier's board that makes these decisions. And we started this process in 2006. Not because we had to, not because the federal government said we had to do this. The state of Indiana has no renewable portfolio standard that dictates that we get a certain percentage of our generation via renewable resources. We did it because it was the right thing to do. Our membership really wanted a focus on renewable generation. There's the environmental stewardship aspect, there's the diversity aspect. A lot of reasons why we wanted to start focusing on renewables. And what you see here is a list. It's a list with a lot of data and information, and some people really cherish seeing tables with a lot of data and information on it. But in the end, what we want you to walk away from is that we've got a lot of projects. They vary in size, technology, location, interconnection as far as the different markets on the energy side of it. But what this shows you is about $250 million worth of investment that Hoosier Energy and our member systems have made in renewable energy since 2007. So it's a real commitment that we have made through the member systems to go out and procure renewable resources in the last 8 years. There's wind, there's solar, there's hydro, there's landfill gas. We're in the process of adding another landfill gas facility. And then the newest, and what we'll spend more time on at the very end of the presentation, is the solar side of it, what we're doing, how we're moving forward with solar at the utility scale. Again, one of the newest, coolest things that we just added was a 25 megawatt wind farm over in South Central Illinois. Again, we'll spend some time talking about the different resources because that matters. It matters to the GNT and it matters to the member system as far as what you get out of these resources. Remembering that there's buckets within the resources. So a fossil fuel derived plant is available 24/7, 365. It has that capacity factor in our world, that's what we call it. It's the reliability of the resource. It operates around the clock. If you're feeding it coal, if you're feeding it natural gas, it operates. On the renewable side, you're at the mercy of the resource that you're utilizing. And so for wind, it's when the wind blows. And so it's only there when the wind is blowing. And so they have capacity factors more in that 35 to 40% time period. And that's fine. It's a good resource. The fuel's free. The costs have come down considerably. We're seeing capacity factors get better over time, but it's something you add to the portfolio that adds to the value of the entire portfolio. But certainly nobody in the room wants to turn their light switch on and get electricity 35% of the time. Your expectation is every time. So it's our job to build a portfolio of generation resources that ensures that you get that reliability at 100%. But again, great project, 25 megawatts. out in South Central Illinois. Why don't we see it within our service territory? It's a great question. We get asked that all the time. How come we don't have wind turbines in Morgan County? How come we don't have them in Monroe County? It's a simple answer. The wind doesn't blow enough. If the wind blew enough, we'd put them here. So you have to go where the resource is available, which is one of the benefits, again, that we'll go through at the end with solar. The solar is just as good here as what it is anywhere else within the Midwest market. And in fact, it's really not that much worse here than what it would be in Miami, Florida, which most people sort of scoff at and say that can't be possible. But in reality, it's true. Now, we're not Arizona, we're not Southern California, but again, solar can be put anywhere. It's one of its major advantages. Wind, not so much. You got to put it where it's really windy. That's why these are out in South Central Illinois, or North Central Illinois. Landfill gas, again, we won't spend too much time on it. We're really excited about what we do with the landfill gas because this goes to the environmental stewardship aspect. This is a man-made problem, and we're coming up with a man-made solution. Everybody here creates garbage. And if you're going to talk about environmental stewardship on the renewable energy front, you have to acknowledge that we all produce garbage. We go around school systems. I talk to kids all the time about renewable energy. And the number one answer when you ask kids, where's your garbage go? Number one answer, the curb. Right? It's the last you see of it. You wheel the garbage can down to the curb and it mysteriously disappears and you go pick up the garbage can, you fill it back up the next week. All that garbage ends up somewhere into landfills. And so that landfill degrades over time, it produces methane. We all know that it's a 25 to 30 times worse greenhouse gas than what CO2 is, and that gas just gets flared. So by going through and building a landfill gas to energy facility, we take that gas, we utilize it, we consume it through a recip engine, and we produce electricity. Great resources. Again, really proud. This goes back to the roots of cooperatives. We take a resource and take advantage of it. We cause the problems, we're taking and making a solution out of it. Great resources again, and these operate 24/7. These are a lot like the fossil fuel derived plants. So again, renewable resource, it fits into the category of high capacity factor. These are great projects. So what do we focus on going forward as a GNT in order to meet our members' needs? Because what we see with our members, what we hear from our members, is an expectation that a percentage, and a growing percentage, of our generation come via renewable resources. Everybody wants to know, do I get green electricity at my home? And your answer is yes. Absolutely. You get a percentage of green electricity at your home through Hoosier Energy because we're out there adding this to the generation portfolio mix. So what do we want to focus on? We want to focus on, again, getting the best bang for the buck, because that's what we are as co-ops. We want to be able to take advantage of the best resources in order to get green electrons at the least cost possible to continue to keep electric rates as low as what we possibly can. That's the end goal with the renewables programs. So we want to focus on landfill gas. Again, great resource, 80% capacity factor, which means it runs 80% of the time. Great resource. Continue to look at wind. Wind costs have dropped dramatically. And then we start going into the solar side of it. And solar has a lot of attributes. It's a very positive resource. How many people know where Hoosier Energy's power plants are at within the state of Indiana? They're not here, are they? They're in Sullivan County and Pike County, Indiana. That's where our coal-fired generation resources are. Because you don't see it, you don't know it, you don't remember it every day. Solar has that potential when you put it out and people associate with it. Those solar panels make electricity. Maybe it encourages you to turn the lights out. Maybe it encourages you to program that thermostat. It makes you more energy conscious because you see it. You're associating electricity with something, a resource, as opposed to my electricity comes from somewhere else. Again, it's the number one answer when we ask people where their electricity comes from. The wall. They don't know. Most people don't know where their electricity is generated from within their market. So solar helps bridge that gap. It gives you an answer to the question, where does it come from? Well, part of mine comes from my roof. I've got solar panels. Again, it's that association. It's no longer somebody else generating it for you, your self-generation. So it's an important aspect with it. But as you can see up here, again, when we're talking about utility scale projects, we're talking about those at the GNT level. These prices at the $2 a watt were, Amy and the Man Plumbing guys were talking earlier and said it was in the $4 a watt range. Again, these are utility scale. We get the benefit of doing very large projects, so you get to drop the cost down. because of economies of scale. So we get those down closer to the $2.5 a watt range, and that produces electricity in that 9 to 12 cent range. Again, capacity factors, when you compare that to generation of a fossil fuel plant or a landfill gas plant, 15 to 20%. That's what you're going to get out of these types of systems. 15 to 20% is going to produce electricity. Well, the sun only shines half the day in the first place, right? Nobody here shines more than that. And then you've got the ramp up time periods in the morning, and like right now, you're seeing the ramp down time periods. But again, so solar hits that peak capacity, it's in that 20% capacity factor range. So why the sudden interest in solar? Why now? We've been tracking it for a long time and said, boy, when solar catches on, we'll be ready for it. We're going to prepare ourselves for what could be a boom within the solar market, and we're there. We're seeing it, at least at the interest level. The conversation is happening all across our service territory within our 18 member systems. Why is it? It's because it's scalable. You can see, you can put it on a camel, right? You could have one panel like we carried in over here, 250 to 300 watt style panels, or you can have 30, 40, 50 panels and get to a 15 kW system. They're Legos. Plug and play, one after another. You can grow it over time. So they're very simple. These things are essentially like a battery, all right? Positive, negative. Low cost to operate, turn it on, walk away. And there's no moving parts. You don't have to grease a wind turbine. You don't have to do anything like that with it. Without moving parts, it's bolt, walk away from it, leave it alone. So again, that has real benefits with the average consumer. You can go anywhere like we talked about. You can bolt it onto anything. We see them on golf carts. I personally haven't seen one on a camel yet, but I don't live where camels are at. But again, you can do, that shows the mobility of these types of resources, that you can't get any other generation resource that can fit on a camel's back and make electricity. Solar affords that opportunity. Low fuel cost, well, it's no fuel cost, right? As long as the sun's shining, you're good to go with it. And it also produces power when it's needed most. Well, wind a lot of times produces in the middle of the night. How many people use that much electricity in the middle of the night? I do at my house because my kids leave the lights on in the basement. It drives me nuts. Other than that, my dishwasher doesn't run, although I should program it to do so, and my laundry doesn't go, although I could do that. But other than that, there's just not a lot of electricity being used at my house or any of my neighbors' homes, which are also all SCI members. I don't want something that's producing electricity when it's not needed. Solar gives you that ability. It produces, starting at 10 o'clock in the morning, it's ramped up, and it's going to produce right now all the way through 6:30, 7 o'clock in the evening. And it's still producing all the way, right now, solar panels out front are still producing electricity. So it matches up with member load, which is important. If the sun's shining, you're producing electricity. That's a real positive with renewable resources. Even though it's 20% capacity factor, it's valuable in the time in which it produces it, when the end consumers need it. Here's the real reason why everyone's interested in solar. You can see basic laws of economics. If everybody remembers back to that dreaded high school economics class where supply and demand, when the supply's there, the demand goes with it. So you can see the number of installations has gone up and predicted to continue to go up at a very exponential rate, and that coincides with the cost drop. So as costs have decreased, and we're talking about a 60% decrease since 2011. We're not talking about in the last 20 years, we're talking about in the last 3. 60% decrease. How many would people go out and buy a new car today if the costs were 60% of what they were 3 years ago? Right? You need a car, you don't have to have solar. But again, that's where that interest level is. Are we seeing the mass ramp up in the number of interconnects? Slowly, and we'll talk about that here in just a few minutes. But the interest level is there because the costs have dropped so precipitously in a very short time period. It all comes back to cost. That's why people have a real interest in it. As well as those other attributes, because it looks cool. I can have it on my house, I can self-supply, I feel green. We get all of those answers. But when you dig in very deep, what's your real interest? And your real interest is, well, it's a lot less expensive today than what it was a few years ago, and I'll like to look into it to see if I can save costs on my electric bill. That's the real answer why people are interested in solar. So let's talk about utility scale solar, because Hoosier's got a program where we're going to put 10 megawatts worth of solar, utility scale solar throughout our member service territory. So we're going to pick 5 locations and put 2 megawatts at each one of those locations, because we want the real world experience. I can stand here and talk about solar all day long. I've been around the country, I've touched 1,000 of these, but I haven't done a utility scale solar project here in Indiana, and I want that data and information. I want to be able to share that with our end consumers to be able to say, what's it like? How does it work? How simple is it really? What are the benefits? I want to know the entire story, and the only way to do that is to actually build some of these projects. So we're going to, again, build 5 of these over the next year and a half. The first one is scheduled to get started by the end of the year. And 2 megawatts is big, right? In our world, when we have 1,000 megawatt coal plants, that's small. But when it comes to solar, that's a big, nice sized project. That takes 20 acres, 16 to 20 acres. So Walmart parking lot worth of glass in order to build one of these 2 megawatt facilities. Again, you can see the cost. It's at about $2.7 million per megawatt installed. So a 2 megawatt facility is going to be in that 5.5-ish, depending on land cost and interconnection cost, $5.5 million. But again, we're going to be able to get real world data and information out of this. And they're going to be out in highly visible areas in order to start the conversation. We want people asking. We want more of these kind of events where we can share the information, because I'm not selling solar panels. We sell electricity to our member owners, which are ultimately you guys. That's what we want. We want to supply you with what our membership wants. And again, cost 9 to 12 cents over a 20-year average for these types of facilities. So now let's talk about our membership. Out of the 18 member systems, we have nearly 100 installations of distributed generation, utilities or residential size solar and wind. That's 0.03% of the 300,000 end consumers. So has there been a tsunami of installations? No. I wouldn't even say yet there's a tsunami of interest in it. But again, it's coming quickly. We're seeing it more and more because of these types of events. But we need some of these other. We're seeing the information exchange from these types of systems. You can see 80 of them are solar, 19 of them are wind turbines. We anticipate the solar to continue to take off and the wind probably not. Wind technology at the residential level really hasn't kept up. It requires a lot of wind and densities, and we've heard it. I hear it all the time. It's really windy at my house. We haven't found somebody's house that's really windy yet that can sustain what it takes to do residential wind at an economic rate. But again, we're seeing more and more of these types of installations. All 18 of our member systems have an interconnect of some sort. So that shows the level of interest, and we anticipate the growth continuing to go up from here and really exponentially over the next few years. So now we're going to talk about this slide, and this is the most important slide in the whole presentation, because I really want to focus on what you guys want to know about the most, right? We could have cut to the chase. I could have shown you this slide because everybody wants to know what's it cost, right? How much does it cost? How much am I going to make? But what I want you to leave here with is sort of knowing the steps in that, and the people that went in front of me did a great job in that. You have to get an assessment. Don't worry about how much money you're going to spend and how much money you're going to make until you've done a solar site assessment. You figure out, can it work, right? Does my house work for this? Can I do this at my house? Do I have trees? Do I have enough property? Is it going to work at my residence? I can't answer that question on the phone. I can look you up on Google and I can try to help, but I'm probably going to send you out and say you need to find a qualified contractor to help you do that. We absolutely encourage, I know one of the questions earlier, we absolutely encourage people to get multiple bids. Go out, find multiple vendors that can give you a bid to do these types of projects so you can get the range of costs associated with it. Then you got to contact your REMC. It's the most important step, but you have to have some information before you can contact your REMC, but you have to contact your REMC. You have to contact your REMC. They are the backbone for your electricity. And their safety and their security for themselves, for their employees, and the rest of the system are in your hands. And it's that important. That's why we have those disconnects. That's why we have that's why all the inverters require AC in order to invert from DC to AC. So if you don't have electricity, it's another question we get all the time. It's great. When the power's out, I'll have electricity. The neighbors can come over and watch TV at my house. Not if you don't have a battery backup system. You will not have electricity. I'll say it again, you will not have electricity if you don't have a backup system, a battery system in place to store that electricity. Because we cannot, and that's national code, you cannot produce electricity to put it back on a line. The last thing you want is a car to clip a pole down in front of your house and the lineman to know that line's dead and for them to go out and work on that line and your solar system put electricity back on that system. That's why it's in place. That's why it's important that they know it. They have that information out there and available. Really important. It's monumental. It's for the safety of the system and your reliability and your neighbor's reliability. It's paramount. And then after that, it's remembering your timeline's closing right now. So here comes the sales pitch, right? But I'm not really selling you anything. But I'm going to tell you, your timeline's closing. The federal tax credit expires December 31st, 2016. Now, is that going to get extended? I have my crystal ball, my political crystal ball is really cloudy. If anybody in here knows, let me know. I have no idea. But right now, as it stands, your 30% tax credit rolls off at the end of 2016. I can tell you, I think it's going to get extended, but I don't know what it's going to look like. But if you want that 30% off front, and that's the only way to get the economics that we're talking about up here. So if we look at it, again, ignore the 2010 cost. The answer is costs have gone down so dramatically even at the residential level for these types of systems. So you look at a 4 kW system, and that 4 kW system, that's going to fit on the average residential consumer's house. 15 kW sounds really nice, but you probably don't have the roof for it. Nationally, that's what we see, 3 to 5 kW. So the 4 kW is that very average system that's going to produce 500 kWh on a monthly basis. That's about half your load. So you don't have to worry about the extra, right? Because you're going to use it all. That's a cost of about $13,000. Now, if you do quick math, if all you guys that have iPhones and have done the quick math, that's $3,250 a kW. Now, we see bids all over the place. Is that on the cheap end? Yeah. Have we talked to end consumers that do a bit of a DIY install themselves and then hire a certified electrician to come in? Yeah, that's about right. If you want a certified installer, you want hands-off, you want to walk away from it, you want to come back in the next day and it's completely done, you're probably not going to do it for $3,250. But that's a good average, that's a good number if you're wanting to run the math. You get the tax credit at the end of the year. So off that $13,000 system, you're going to get a $3,900 tax credit right back from the federal government. That's assuming that you paid that much in taxes. If you didn't pay that much in taxes, they'll roll it over the next year until you're able to get all that money back over time. So your all-in cost for this type of system is $9,100. And again, you could run through, you're going to produce this many, 500 kWh, 480 kWh on a monthly basis. You can calculate that through based off electricity values, and we have member systems that pay a wide range of compensation back for the electricity, but you can see if you're at the higher end of compensation versus the lower end of the compensation, you're going to see a 15 to 30 year payback. I see no scenario in which it's less than 15. I've run the calculations over and over again. I don't see anything less than a 15-year payback at this point. Others may tell you differently. But according to our calcs, 15 is about the best case scenario. If you're doing it yourself, you're going to see a 15-year ROI on your investment. Here's my contact information. We're here to help. We want to be a resource. That's really what we want to be. A resource for your questions, non-biased. Yes, we sell you electricity through your GNT, but as a member, owner, we want to hear from you. We want to know what you want us focusing on, and we're trying to do the right thing right now. But again, questions, we'll try to get you those answers as quickly as possible.